Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is the second webinar that we are running, which is an introduction to Pearson and talking through our student-centered British international education. So thank you for your time this evening. I will be talking through some information for about 30 minutes, after which we will have some time for questions. Please use the Q&A box to post your questions in as I go through the slides, and we'll have a chance to talk through them in the second half of the hour. Please also just keep yourselves on mute, just to avoid any kind of interference as we go along. But thank you again. I am Christine Evans. I'm Head of Business Development for Pearson's International Schools across Sub-Saharan Africa, based here in Cape Town, and I'm really pleased to have you joining us today. I hope that you will find this session useful. So let's start with who is Pearson. Pearson is a global learning company, and we work across 5 core areas of focus. The first one being our UK Assessment Qualifications division, which is where our British International qualifications sit. That's the division we'll be speaking to today. We also have a Workforce Skills division, which is where our BTEC qualifications sit, and that really focuses on skills development and career-focused education in a school and post-school level. We have a Virtual Education division, Higher Education Publishing, which many of you will be aware of, and then English Language Learning and Assessment, which relates to things like the Pearson Test of English, which is incredibly popular around the world for visa purposes and progression to higher education. So let's move on. Pearson as an examination board was first established in the 1800s as University of London Examinations. So we have a very long history of examination provision. We are the largest provider of qualifications in the UK, and that's because we offer the broadest range of qualifications, which you'll see a little bit more about in a minute when we look at the various boards. We have over 6,500 schools, colleges, and employers that we work with and partner with around the world. We mark over 10 million exam scripts in the UK every year, and we operate across over 100 countries. So really a broad scope and a long history. This is a quick snapshot of the various awarding organizations that operate in the UK. The way the British education system works is that the regulator Ofqual and the government, they set the standards for education and the policy, and then there are various examination boards that interpret that policy into curriculum. At a primary level, the primary education is standard, so all schools do the same curriculum, but from a GCSE and A-level, there are a choice of various examination boards, and the norm is for schools to work with multiple awarding organizations, often with the head of department choosing their preference board in terms of various content differences or exam style, question approaches, and this can inform preferences between boards. So this gives you a snapshot of the various boards that operate in the UK. And as you can see, Pearson is the only board that offers both the UK qualifications, the GCSE and the GCE A-level, as well as the international qualifications at primary, lower secondary, international GCSE, and international A-level, as well as the BTEC, which is unique to Pearson. All right, and this gives you an overview of the British education system. We've spoken a little bit about the primary curriculum and the secondary curriculum. This gives you a view of the stages, key stages as they're called, from ages 3 to 5 being early years, age 5 to 7, and 7 to 11 being the primary stage. 11 to 14 is what we call lower secondary. And then 14 to 16, key stage 4 is GCSE or international GCSE, and key stage 5 relates to A-level. And along the bottom, you can see the fact that Pearson has international primary, international lower secondary, and then the GCSE and international GCSE, and then the UK A-level and international A-level. So why do people choose British education? It is the most popular international education globally, and it really has a global reputation for quality and also for progression opportunities. Universities around the world understand the British education system, understand the value of the qualifications. They understand the skill set that students going through the GCSE and A-level qualifications attain, and it really prepares students effectively for university and with our qualifications as well, because we have the experience across qualifications like BTEC, and we're very involved in skills development as well. We are very conscious of incorporating what we call transferable skills into our qualifications, which really are sometimes called soft skills, things like communication, teamwork, critical thinking, all of these behaviors that are really crucial for students to apply their knowledge effectively once they go not only to university, but into the world of work. So this is a really key theme for us as well, and it really strengthens the value of the qualifications beyond what universities might already understand about British education. Okay, so this is the suite of Pearson's international qualifications. We call it the iProgress suite. And let's just have a quick look at each of those stages. So we have just recently launched our early years program. We are really excited to add this to our suite of qualifications. This is for students aged 3 to 5 years old, and we focus on maths, English, and the world around us. So the world around us is really about exploratory learning and developing questioning, investigation, and problem-solving skills, as well as social emotional development. So those transferable skills and those behaviors start right from the early stages of that curriculum. And it gives a really strong preparation for the primary phase. So through iPrimary and iLower Secondary, which we also call IPLS, running from 5 years to 14 years, we have a pedagogical approach that focuses on active learning, formative assessment, and critical thinking. So again, a big focus on building those skills and thinking skills and self-reflection skills and self-awareness that will continue developing through their educational journey as they progress to higher level qualifications. And the subjects that we cover in iPrimary and iLower Secondary are English, maths, science, computing, and global citizenship. Global citizenship really exposes students to the big questions in the world, global warming and these different issues that the youth of today are increasingly interested in. And it helps teachers to facilitate discussions around these really important issues and getting students interested and involved and able to have constructive discussion and debate around these topics from early on, and also to have an awareness of environments beyond their own. And so those are our core subject areas. And we have external assessments. We call them achievement tests, one at the end of primary and one at the end of lower secondary, which helps students to benchmark those core skills against the international standards. And then we also have a framework for supporting schools to have an international standard or an international approach to the subjects that you see at the bottom of the slide, which is art, music, PE, geography, history, and design and technology. These are subjects that really need to be more tailored to the student's immediate environment, need to have examples that are very relatable, and they're less universal in nature. And so we provide a framework for development, for delivery, but we don't assess those subjects. So let's move on to international GCSE. Many of you on the call will already have some knowledge of qualification, I'm expecting, but it is a secondary qualification for students aged 14 to 16 years old. Usually students would take between 8 and 10 subjects, but that varies dramatically by country and by the progression criteria required. So locally in South Africa, students might only take 5 or 6 international GCSE subjects. It really depends where they plan to go, how many A-levels they plan to take, and it should be very much informed by your progression objectives. We have 37 different subjects available at International GCSE, and each subject is 120 guided learning hours. So that is teacher or tutor time, and excludes the time that students learn independently. And this really starts to provide students with the skills and knowledge that they need to progress onto the A-level qualification, and starts to give them a really good foundation in the academic content of their subject choices. Schools that work with us to deliver the International GCSE qualification get the following support from Pearson. So we provide a subject specification document that details the learning outcomes, the topics, the way that the subject is being assessed. We provide getting started guides, teacher course planners, schemes of work, lesson plans, and then we also have student books, and for International GCSE, the really incredible teaching hubs that have been launched, which we'll have a little bit of a look at later. And then on the assessment side of things, we have exemplar materials, examiner reports, past papers, and then tools like Exam Wizard and Results Plus, which again, I will give you more detail on as we move through the slide. So going on to International A-Level. A-Level is a globally recognized and understood qualification by universities and employers around the world. A very rigorous qualification, and it requires students to take quite a deep dive into a relatively small range of subjects. So really getting to grips with deep knowledge of their subject areas. Generally, students are 16 to 18 years old during the course of this qualification, and normally students would take 3 A-levels. Again, in South or Southern Africa, students might only require an AS level to progress to university, which is the first year of the 2-year A-level qualification. And we have 21 subjects available in our International A-level qualification. Something just to mention is that our International A-level sciences are assessed via written examination based on development of practical skills during the course. So there is no practical examination required for our International A-level sciences. We also have the extended project qualification. So this is a suite of qualifications that are unique to the UK curriculum, and it gives students an opportunity to achieve an additional qualification that strengthens their university applications, gives them a more holistic set of skills, and they have an opportunity to choose a topic of interest and carry out self-directed learning to produce a dissertation, field study, and an artifact or performance. And we have 2 new pathway options that we support, which are artificial intelligence and sustainability and climate change. So if you've got students that can do a little bit of a stretch beyond the standard requirements, then this is a really exciting additional opportunity for students to showcase their skills and also explore an area of interest. So how are we leading the way in assessment innovation? Pearson has over 20 years experience in the online or virtual schools space. We have a school in the US called Connections Academy, which is incredibly experienced, incredibly successful, and supports, works with different states around the US to support students who, for whatever reason, the traditional brick and mortar school environment is not appropriate for them. And so Pearson has really been able to leverage the expertise and experience from the team that work in Connections Academy to understand how to better serve virtual schools that are emerging, especially out of South Africa. There's one of the fastest growing markets for virtual schools around the world, which is really exciting. So Pearson is very well placed to support those schools to deliver quality education online. We've also been the first to launch on-screen assessment for international GCSEs, which is incredibly exciting. That means that students are able to write an examination on screen within a traditional examination environment, so at a school under physical invigilation, but on a computer. And the first subject we launched for on-screen was English language, and we've got incredible feedback from students and teachers about the experience. Pearson's intention with moving on screen is not just to win a race to be first and not just to put paper behind glass for the sake of it. It's really to leverage our expertise in educational technology and assessment expertise to enhance the assessment experience and to make assessment more effective. It also gives us an opportunity to provide functionality in that on-screen assessment to serve a broad range of special educational needs, such as adjusting text size or color for visual impairments. Students can also annotate, and they can copy and paste and edit their work far more easily than they can on a paper-based examination. So it gives students a lot of flexibility, and of course, it feels far more natural for students these days to be working on screen than to be writing and being examined with a pen and paper. So students have been incredibly excited about having the option to do that. We are also the first board to offer a remote invigilation service. So this is still in pilot phase. We've been working with a number of our virtual schools partners globally, where they have students in remote locations, or they have students with special educational needs for whom sitting in a traditional exam environment is not going to allow them to perform at their best. And so they have been invited to participate in our pilot phase of the remote invigilation for international GCSEs. And we've had incredible stories coming out of that service, where students who otherwise may not have been able to write their examinations are now able to do so in a safe environment and under one-on-one invigilation. So exam security is not compromised, but we really increase access to our examinations, and it's something we're incredibly proud to be able to do. So this is a snapshot of the on-screen assessment roadmap. This is already the third year that we're going into making on-screen exams available. Our first subjects, as I mentioned, were English language, English literature, history, economics, and business. We've moved on to some GCSEs and also international GCSE geography, global citizenship, Islamic studies, Pakistan studies. And then for 2026, first assessment on screen will be for international A-level and international A-level economics and business and history as well. So a lot of work going on in this space, but again, very much releasing subjects when they are at a stage of really enhancing the experience of that examination. So there are a few subjects that you'll see are not appearing there yet, and that's because maybe we're still working on ensuring that that experience is the best it can possibly be. Okay, so what makes Edexcel more student-centric? We know that doing all of the examinations at the end of a period of study, in this case 2 years for international GCSE or 2 years for A-level, works well for many students. That structure is called a linear approach. But we also know that spreading out exam pressure works better for others, and that is called a modular approach. So essentially, that would mean that you have chunks or units of learning that students work through, and then an examination that relates to that content, which they write, and then move on to the next set of content, and then write another examination based on that second set of content, and to spread the workload out and also spread the examination out as well. So we've already been offering our international A-levels as a modular structure, but we are the first board to introduce a modular option for international GCSE. So we will retain the linear approach. It remains exactly as it is, but the modular route breaks the journey into units with an exam at the end of each unit. And whichever route a school offers to take or a student takes, the teaching time is the same, and the examination preparation time is the same, but it really gives far more flexibility to cater to your specific student needs and support them to perform at their best. So let's have a few a look at a few of the benefits of the modular approach. For students, it reduces the mental load and stress by allowing them to focus on 1 year of content at a time and spreading out their examinations over 2 years. It provides more opportunities for them to demonstrate their skills and abilities and therefore optimize feedback to improve their performance. It also allows them to take examinations when they're ready to do so, and also allows multiple resit opportunities, resitting only necessarily the paper that they need to improve on and not necessarily the entire subject, which is the case with a linear qualification. For educators and parents, it provides really rich mid-cycle data. If you've got your students taking paper 1 of an international GCSE at the end of year 10, especially if you're making use of our results analysis tool called Results Plus. It provides consistent experience with international A-levels because that is already modular from Pearson. And it can also help to spread out the cost of examinations for parents. So let's have a look at the structure. Generally, an international GCSE subject has 2 papers. And so you would have 2 years of learning, and then students would write their 2 papers at the end of that period. This now provides the opportunity for students to sit paper 1 at the end of year 1 and paper 2 at the end of year 2, thereby, as I mentioned, splitting the content they need to cover and also splitting the examination burden. And so you'll see the list of the international GCSE subjects that we have now made available as modular options: English, history, geography, religious studies, commerce, accounting, economics, and then maths A, biology, chemistry, physics, and science double award. So quite a broad range of subjects that we now have available as a modular option. The schemes of work and specifications have been updated to show the split in content between year 1 and year 2, and obviously ensure that the paper 1 aligns to the year 1 content and paper 2 to the year 2 content. So there are 2 different subject specifications that you will see on our website for these subjects when you go to our subject pages. It's important to understand that both will remain because both are still available for schools to choose from. However, it really does make sense, even if you want to deliver in a linear way, to make use of the modular unit examinations, because that means that if your student wants to rewrite, or they want to improve their subject grade, as I mentioned, they would only need to resit the 1 paper that needs to be improved. They would not need to resit both papers. So that is a big benefit of the modular approach, even if you are continuing to teach in a linear way. And as I mentioned, our international A-levels have been modular since we launched them in 2018. They were launched when the UK A-level became linear and separated from the AS qualification. So often people think of a modular A-level as being AS still contributes to A2. So AS still being the first part of the 2-year A-level qualification. But our international A-level is far more modular than that. And so each unit of the qualification has its own examination paper, and each of those papers can be spread out across a different examination series. And we have exams for international A-level in January, June, and October each year. Not all subjects or all units are available in every session. So it's really important to have a look at our international information manual on our website to check when each unit is available. But it really provides a lot of flexibility to assess students when they are ready, and also to allow students to focus on those smaller chunks of content and bank those as they go along. This was an incredibly valuable structure during the pandemic as well, because some students who had already written some of their units had evidence of achievement banked with us already that we could use to help determine their overall grade. So it was incredibly valuable during that time, and it also has a host of other benefits, which is why we're seeing increased demand for modular qualifications and why we have extended this to being an option at international GCSE as well. So are modular qualifications accepted? Yes, the certification does not distinguish between a linear and a modular qualification. And in South Africa, USAF see the first paper as being an internal assessment if there is no certification. So in South Africa, USAF has a 2-sitting rule. It limits the number of examination series that a student can use to achieve their qualification. And so this is just to let you know and reassure you that by writing a paper earlier in your course, it does not kickstart that 2-sitting rule clock. That clock only starts at the first point of certification. So it is possible to use a modular approach and not worry about extending that 2-sitting series. And then in our engagement with Stellenbosch University's admissions team, we really received positive feedback from them saying it just makes sense to support students to concentrate on parts of their work at a time, chunks of content at a time, and to help them spread out their learning and spread out their assessment. So there's really been a positive feedback to extending the range of modular qualifications that we make available. So how do we provide more support and transparency in our results? I did mention earlier the Teaching Hub for International GCSE. This is a new resource for teachers, and it's a digital resource, so it can be used front of class, but also in a virtual schooling environment. And we provide content for every minute of the curriculum. So there is no need for a teacher to go looking for content, to developing lessons, to spending hours planning. Your time can be dedicated to your students and to your teaching, because all of the content is included in the Teaching Hub's course, including assessment support as well. We have embedded videos and worksheets that are downloadable, and lots of activities to use to support your lessons. So a really comprehensive, incredible support that is new from Pearson to support some of our international GCSE subjects. It's currently available for English Language A, Maths A, Biology, Chemistry, Physics, and Business. And so please, if you are teaching these subjects or interested in starting to deliver our curriculum, this is a really fantastic support, especially if you're new to teaching international GCSE or Pearson's international GCSEs. We also have the broadest range of subject advisors. So this is an incredible team of subject experts, and they are available on social media. They publish newsletters, and they are directly available from teachers to answer subject-specific questions. They also share the latest news in their subject area and often run subject-facing events, but they are directly accessible by teachers. So a really fantastic team of experts that are available to support teachers that are delivering our qualifications. And I've just mentioned the social media platforms that you can find them on, Facebook and LinkedIn. We have our pages called Pearson, UK and International Schools. So please go onto those platforms and follow us. And you'll also find each of these subject advisors with their own pages posting news and updates and interesting events coming up. Exam Wizard. So this is a tool that is freely available to all of our approved Edexcel centers, and it allows you to access past questions as items, question items, and adapt them to what you are needing. So you can build your own assessments, whether it's on a particular topic, from a particular year or a particular area of the curriculum. You can adapt that to what you need for your class using real past paper questions. So a very, very helpful tool that teachers find incredibly useful to support assessment and examination preparation. We offer training to teachers, getting ready to teach training, and also examiner feedback sessions. So a lot of support from our training team for teachers that are delivering our curriculum. And we also have general pedagogical training available through our PD Academy, which you can find through our International Schools website. And we also have new training being developed all the time, one of the latest being Mark-like and examiner training, where we've taken the training that we use to train our examiners, and we have adapted that to teachers to help you understand how to prepare students for the style of questioning in the examinations and what our markers are looking for when they mark examinations. So that will really help to build confidence, especially in your mock examination process. And we also offer services such as mock sample marking. So if you send a sample of your mocks to us, we can provide feedback on how well you have applied the mark scheme and advice on how to enhance that going forwards. It really helps to build the confidence of your teachers to know that they are can trust the mock marks, that those shouldn't be too far off from what your students end up getting in the final examination, and they're preparing students effectively for the external examination. Results Plus. So this is our results analysis system. It is the most in-depth results analysis tool of any British international curriculum provider. And the reason we are able to provide such granular data is because of the way that our exam scripts are marked. So when the papers go off to the UK, they are scanned and digitally cut up into the individual questions. And each question goes off to a different marker that is trained to specifically mark that question. We monitor the marking incredibly closely. We have incredibly reliable and rigorous technology that we use called ePen, and we are often amongst the boards that have the fewest number of results issues or grade changes, ultimately because of the efficacy and accuracy of that system. So that's something we are very proud of. And what it means is that when all of that data comes back together, we can provide you with a view of your students' performance at question level compared to a cohort that you create within your school, or compared to every other student around the world that took that examination. Often you'll see that a question might be linked to a particular skill, and this allows you to see whether there's a group of questions that students may have done well on that link to one skill, and maybe a set of questions linked to another skill that they haven't done as well on. So it really informs any kind of intervention for a resit. But if there's a school with teachers, with more than one teacher for a subject, you can also compare performance across classes linked to particular skill areas, and then that can help to inform your professional development and knowledge sharing within your teaching team as well. So this is an incredibly valuable tool, and one that provides a lot of insight. And this is why also, if your students are taking a modular approach to the international GCSE, you would then get a really in-depth view of their performance at the end of year 10 on paper 1 to help understand whether they are operating at the right standard or maybe need to do a little bit more work to be ready for that final assessment at the end of year 2. And so this has been a really, really fantastic tool, and it's freely available to all of our partner Edexcel centers. We are also, we're the first examination board to offer free access to scripts. So this means that after the examination, the exam center can request, with the student's permission, a digital copy of the student's examination paper. This allows you to see exactly how they performed in the examination and how the mark scheme has been applied. This really provides a lot of transparency, also for parents to see how their child performed in the exam versus what they were expecting, and to understand whether it's worth paying for any kind of post-result services to request a remark or a review of marking, because you can see exactly how that child has performed. So again, something that provides a lot of transparency, a lot of information, and can help inform any kind of reattempt, remarks, resits, and things like that. So something that's really actually resulted in a huge drop in our post-result services because of the transparency and visibility that we provide. So a question we get asked a lot is, can students combine results from different examination boards? The answer is absolutely yes. From UK examination boards, if you've got a subject with international GCSE from one board and international GCSE from another board, or GCSE and international GCSE from different boards, they can absolutely be combined. They are equivalent qualifications and they are recognized as such. So it's really not a problem to have two sets of documentation. This, as I mentioned, is the standard way of working within the British education system and something incredibly normal. So Absolutely, yes, is the answer. And USAF has, of course, confirmed that as well. They will combine qualifications from different boards within the same education system. So you wouldn't necessarily be able to combine an international GCSE with a US qualification subject or a subject from a different educational system, but from within the British international education system, absolutely you can. Okay, and I mentioned the fact that the international A-level and international GCSE are recognized by universities around the world. We do have information available on our website, published by our recognitions and progressions team that engage with universities around the world to help support student progression, and a list of universities that have given us written confirmation of recognition and acceptance. Of course, the number of universities that accept students are go far beyond those that have necessarily given us that written permission. But if you have any questions about acceptance of a university, a specific university that you don't see on the list, please reach out to us and we will provide confirmation, or in some cases engage with the university on behalf of the student to ensure that the qualifications are understood and clarify anything that is necessary. So across sub-Saharan Africa, we have 139 partner schools and 25 schools in Southern Africa, 8 of which are virtual schools partners. And there's a few examples of the schools that we work with across Southern Africa. The reason we are still relatively small in Southern Africa is because it was only last year that we introduced our permanent international GCSE series in November. So now we are able to cater to schools on the Southern Hemisphere academic year from January to December, whereas previously our qualifications were very much aligned to the UK academic year. And so it's really fantastic that we can now support schools locally, grow locally, and expand our qualifications in Southern Africa. And this is a snapshot of the center list in South Africa. So our examination centers, and then also our virtual schools partners as well. And those are growing consistently as we move forward, and as the word spreads about the fact that there are options within British international education, and of course things like modular qualifications, which is really drawing a lot of interest towards Pearson qualifications in general. So how to become an approved center with Pearson? You would work with your local regional development manager. I manage South Africa, and then we have a team which I will show you in a minute. We require schools to be registered with the local Ministry of Education or Department for Education. You would complete an application form, and you would need to understand the Joint Council for Qualification Regulations, which is a council that governs the exam processes for all UK examination boards. And this application form looks at things like appropriate learning facilities, examination facilities, secure storage facilities, named responsible persons for the exams officer and head of center role, various policies relating to safeguarding, appeals, and data protection, and then obviously acceptance of our Pearson terms and conditions. And like I mentioned, really important to understand and accept the JCQ regulations. So once your application form has been received, you would have a center inspection, either in person or virtual, conducted by your relevant RDM, and then your application would be submitted to the UK, and generally it's about 2 weeks turnaround time to get feedback, either for further information or for that approval to be issued if all the criteria have been met. So it's a very straightforward process. And locally in sub-Saharan Africa, we do not charge a center approval fee. The fees that we charge relate to any teaching and learning materials that you might purchase for supporting your delivery, and also the examinations themselves. We do not charge annual fees for schools wanting to deliver international GCSE or A-level qualifications. So this is the team of your regional development managers. It's myself here in South Africa, and then we have Peloshwa Mohutsiwa, who's based in Botswana, and she covers the rest of Southern Africa. We have Marvin Owati, based in Kenya, who covers East Africa. And then we have Gabriel Soamenza, based in Ghana, who covers West Africa. So this is your team in sub-Saharan Africa that supports schools that deliver our qualifications. All right, so that is it from me. We hopefully have some time now to go through a few questions. So I'm going to ask my colleague Ilaria to please assist me by having a look at the Q&A and just letting me know what questions may have come up.
Thank you, Christine. We had a couple of questions in chat. Alette is asking whether Pearson Edexcel is available for private candidates.
So we do have examination centres that host private candidates, tutors and exams, British Council, and many of our examination centres are also open to hosting private candidates. So our international GCSE and A-level specifications and subject guides and a lot of the support material is freely available and publicly available on our website. So you can, as a homeschooler, go and access that information and follow our curriculum. You could also purchase our textbooks to support you with that process. But as a homeschooler, without being part of a formal schooling environment, you wouldn't necessarily have access to things like the Exam Wizard, the Results Plus, and some of those support tools, the teacher training. Those kinds of things are needed. They are only accessible by approved Pearson Edexcel examination centres and schools.
Thank you. We got more questions coming in chat. John is asking, do you charge subscription fees? And also whether the slides will be shared. I can answer the question about the slides. The slide will be shared. The webinar is being recorded, and we will share a recording with you in the next couple of days, possibly early next week. And we can share the slides. I think, Christine, we can post it on our website, and so that they are available there. So the question from John was, do you charge subscription fees?
It's difficult to know what the question relates to. In terms of curriculum, we don't charge an annual approval fee, and we don't charge any annual fee for schools that are delivering our GCSE, international GCSE, or A-level or international A-level qualifications. If schools choose to deliver our early years, I-primary or I-lower secondary curriculum, then there is an annual subscription fee because we provide a huge amount of teacher support through that subscription, which includes the professional development component every year. So there is an annual fee in relation to the early years through to lower secondary curriculum, but not for GCSE and A-level. And we would have subscriptions for our digital teaching and learning materials. That's also where a subscription might come in.
Alison is asking where you can buy Pearson's textbooks from in South Africa.
So there are a number of different bookstores that have an account with us. Stores need to buy books from the UK. So Pearson South Africa, which previously produced textbooks for the local CAPS curriculum and also provided our international textbooks, is now Massey Miller Learning, no longer part of Pearson. So any schools or bookstores that want to purchase our products are doing so directly from Pearson in the UK. And there's a number of bookstores that do that. A few of them are Wise Books, Caxton, Mallory International, and we are working with a few partners to start stocking some of our books locally, which will increase the access to those textbooks, the hard copy textbooks, because currently it does take a few weeks to bring those products into the country. But you're welcome to reach out to us and get a list of the bookstores that do have accounts with Pearson, and we can share those with you so you can reach out to them to request quotes.
There's some questions about BTEC in chat. I shared the link to our BTEC page where you can find more information. There is a question from Portia who's saying, I'm in South Africa and would like to know, what does it take for one to be your tutor centre?
So we generally work with schools, not necessarily tutor centres. As I mentioned, you can access the curriculum, but we require schools to be registered as schools with the DBE in order to approve them as Pearson Edexcel examination centers or partner schools. But that doesn't stop you from delivering the curriculum, and you can reach out to the centers that support private candidates in homeschooling and organizations such as Student Exams to understand how they may be able to support you with delivery. They are also working with us to provide Teaching Hub access to private tutors. So that's something that you can contact them about to find out more.
There's also a question about whether BTEC is possible to do BTEC in South Africa.
It is possible to do BTEC in South Africa. However, we've not been promoting it because although USAF recognizes BTEC for progression to universities, I'm still working with SACWA to get a matric equivalency for BTEC. So it's really important that students taking an international qualification, that qualification increases opportunities. And so SACWA has been very encouraging and open and receptive. But we haven't had any students going through that equivalency process yet with a BTEC. And so that is still a work in progress. So we've not been promoting the qualification, but once SACWA has issued the criteria for the matric equivalent for BTEC, then it will make the BTEC, I think, an attractive option for schools and students in South Africa.
Thank you, Christine. And thank you, Pello, for alerting me that there are more questions in the Q&A. So in the Q&A, we have a question from Jenny that's asking, for Results Plus, is this available for early years and primary or just international GCSE and above?
We don't have an external achievement test for early years, but it is available for iPrimary and lower secondary, yes.
And then more questions in the Q&A chat. Is Pearson's content exactly the same as Cambridge?
So the answer is no, but the degree to which it differs will vary by subject. So it's really important just to have a look at the subject specifications online, compare that to what you're seeing with Cambridge, if that's what you've been using, and you'll quite quickly see where there are differences and variance in content versus what you are used to or another curriculum that you're using. But each subject will have a different degree of change in content between between other boards, basically. So you can look at those subject specifications on our subject pages online. And obviously, please reach out to us if you've got any questions about the subject specifically, or you could reach out to one of the subject advisors as well.
Thank you, Christine. And
something sorry, Ilaria, just to add,
sure.
We do have some mapping documents available to support schools and teachers to understand where the differences lie. So that is also some support that we provide for schools that may be switching across from one board to us to help them focus on where the changes may be to adapt their courses.
There is another question in the Q&A chat from an anonymous attendee. Is it easier to do well in International GCSE and AS Art and Design in Pearson compared to Cambridge?
The qualifications are equivalent, so no board's qualifications are easier than the other. I think every year after every exam series, there's a debate between students about what's easier and what's more difficult, and it swaps every year. So that's a very subjective question. The standards are the same, the qualification, the rigor is the same. But the approach to assessment would be different. So whether there's coursework, whether there's controlled assessment, how those are applied, that would differ between the different boards and even between our GCSE and our international GCSE art and design subjects. So we have seen a shift lately in the last few years from schools across to our specifically GCSE art and design. There seems to be a preference for that, and schools tend to prefer that approach. But as I mentioned, there won't be any one that's easier than the other. You come out with the same degree of qualification, but it seems to be a friendlier and more preferred approach to assessment.
I'm going back to Portia and the questions about what does it take to be a tutor center, to become a tutor center. Because Portia says, thank you for answering my question, but I mean the private tutor services to support students after school.
Yeah, so the same answer would apply. If you're a private tutor, it would be good to link up with an organization like Tutors and Exams and inquire from them what support they may be able to give you, because Pearson we don't have the capacity to support private tutors directly. We generally work through schools or we work through examination services providers. So you can access the curriculum, the specifications and the support materials on our website, qualifications.pearson.com. And then you would work with a center that hosts private candidates to support your students and inquire with them what kind of support they can provide in terms of information about our qualifications, updates, and guidance on where to find past papers and preparation materials as well.
There is another message about, sorry, just need to go back to up. Albert is asking, do you have a Pearson Center in Uganda?
Yes, we have a number of Pearson centers in Uganda. I can't confirm them off the top of my head, but I think the best bet would be to reach out to Marvin Owiti, and he will be able to give you the details of our partner schools in Uganda. So let me see. I was going to go back to my team slide, but we can just put his email address in the chat, I think, and then you can reach out to him directly.
And then there are other questions from Albert in the Q&A box about Pearson Edexcel primary or iPrimary. I shared the link to our iPrimary qualification page in chat. Albert is also asking, what's the new grading scale for Pearson Primary?
We don't have a new grading scale for Pearson Primary. The grading scale at primary is based on a pass and a merit, I think. You've caught me on the block. Pelo's on the line. Maybe Pelo can jump in and talk a little bit more about the grading at primary and lower secondary, if I can put you on the spot there. Pelo, are you with us?
Hi, Christine. Yes, I'm here. Yeah, so the grading is based on a pass P1, P2, P3. I think we can share that grading system with them via a link that I'll post just now. I'll look for it and post it just now.
Yeah,
and it's also available. It's also available on all the specifications on our website. So on the specification, there is where it shows assessment and how grading is done.
Thank you, Pelo. So that grading structure, it's been the same since we launched our iPrimary and our lower secondary curriculum. There's been no change there. So as Pelo said, you can, we'll pop a link in the chat and you can go through and have a look at how that is structured. Something to mention that I didn't flag during the session is the fact that our international GCSEs, just as the UK GCSE is, graded from 9 to 1. So we did move our international GCSE qualifications away from the A star to G grading structure to 9 to 1 when this was introduced with the GCSE in the UK a few years ago. And that is the bottom of a 4 is linked to the bottom of a C grade, and the bottom of the 7 is linked to an A grade, and the grade 9 is actually a new grade. So grade 9 represents only the top performing students that would achieve an A star. So it really gives students performing at the top level a great opportunity to showcase that result, that excellent result with a grade 9. and gives a very competitive results for university. And it also gives a bit more granular performance at the lower end of the scale than the A star to G grading structure does. So there is a change there at our international GCSE between A star to G and the 9-to-1 grading.
Thank you. There is a new question from Jobo in chat. One second. I just need to find it. How do you intervene if the Ministry of Education does not recognize the international Pearson curriculum in one's own country, yet the registration procedures were followed?
So, as I mentioned, we have a recognition and progression team, and the regional team work with that team and work with the ministries of education in various countries to request permission for our curriculum to be delivered, and to ensure that the recognition is in place. In some countries, that is an easier process than others, and where we have challenges, we do engage with our government relations team, with the local British High Commissioners, to get their support, with the British Council as well, to get their support in engaging ministries to recognise and accept our qualifications. So it really does vary from country to country, and we obviously do everything that we can to support schools and to ensure that our qualifications are approved by ministries of education in the countries that we are growing into.
Thank you, Christine. There is a question from Carol that was posed at the very start. What is English A and Maths A?
So in our English and Maths specifications, we have different pathways, and it would cover different sets of content and also be assessed in a slightly different way. And English A and Maths A tend to be the most popular options within those subject areas and tend to be the best preparation for students that are progressing on to university. We do provide subject guides on our website that detail out the differences between the different pathways, the different components. For English language, there may be an optional spoken component, and the different pathways would either include that or not, or have a greater focus on certain set work texts. So there's different content and different assessment approaches to those pathways. So please do go to our website, have a look at our Maths and English pages, and have a look at our subject guides, and they will give you all the details across those various options.
And Paul is asking who covers North Africa.
North Africa sits in a separate region, so that's not part of my region in Sub-Saharan Africa. And our colleague Moran Mansour, who is based in Egypt, manages North Africa.
And I can send in chat the link to our contact page so that you'll be able to find who covers North Africa. I can't see any of the questions in chat. I just checked the Q&A 1 second. Yes, there's a couple of more questions. One is from Karen. Is the international GCSE modular approach not available in the UK?
I don't think it is, no. So generally schools in the UK would take the GCSE rather than the international GCSE. I think there are some independent schools that have the option of the international GCSE. At this stage, the modular approach has been launched internationally. I don't think it's currently available within the UK.
And another question in the Q&A box. Does Pearson obtain data from their centres to see how many students using the curriculum get into university?
So there isn't really a way for us to capture those statistics. We tend to be reliant on the schools to share any such information with us, or to reach out to us to share success stories when we ask for case studies, or of course reach out to us if they need support with progression discussions. So we don't have a mechanism for capturing those statistics. But of course, Pearson Edexcel qualifications are offered globally around the world, and there are thousands of students going to universities, the top universities as well around the world, using our qualifications.
Another question from Alison, who's asking, are there online schools that offer Pearson's courses for Southern Africa?
Yes, so on the slide that I showed a little bit earlier, we had a list of our virtual schools partners. And those include Sainsburg, Cambrilearn, Teneo, Wingu, Swales, also known as Campus of Things, and Brave Generations Academy, Crimson, Katuba. I think I've covered all of them.
Thank you, Christine. And I think we have exhausted the questions in chat and in the Q&A, but we did have some questions that were pre-submitted for this specific webinar. So I'm going to read out some of them. This is about modular. How does Pearson Edexcel's modular system can accommodate/assist students with learning difficulties in coursework and exams?
So I think the answer to that obviously varies depending on the special educational need that the student has, and that always needs to be very much a case-by-case basis at an individual level. But the fact that it provides the ability to spread out the workload, the learning load, and also the assessment load definitely means that students that maybe struggle with exam anxiety or have particular difficulties relating to workload and exam stress may benefit from a modular approach, but it's difficult to say without understanding the exact need of the individual student. It does definitely provide more flexibility to cater for individual needs.
And we have some questions about teacher support. How does Pearson support international teachers?
So we do provide a lot of guidance. We provide teacher training. We provide teaching and learning materials for use in the classroom. We provide the subject advisors. We provide the exam wizard. So there's a lot of different tools and materials and expertise that we make available to teachers that are delivering our curriculum.
There is another question in chat from Portia. Do you have institutions that train students or people to teach the Pearson curriculum? As people choose careers, and then which institution can one go to study education to specialize in the Pearson curriculum?
So we don't have any institutions that are specifically training teachers to deliver Pearson curriculum, but we do have a lot of teacher training available on our PD Academy, which I mentioned you can access through our international schools website. And so really teaching the international curriculum, there would obviously be quite a lot of differences in the structure of the curriculum if you're moving from local curriculum to international curriculum, but the skills required really are the same. And so it's more to get to grips with the pedagogical approach in British education. And so there's a series of different courses and trainings available that you can take. We also do offer master training courses. So there is a professional development pathway that teachers can move through with Pearson, but we don't have teaching qualifications as such related to the Pearson curriculum.
And then we have questions about Edexcel, Pearson Edexcel versus Cambridge International. And I think we touched before on how does the curriculum differ from Cambridge. So I think you answered that before. And how does it compare to Cambridge? And how does one decide which is a better fit?
So from a recognition and preparation perspective, the qualifications are equivalent and they are recognized as such. And so it's really about looking at the specific subjects that you want to do, looking at the variance in content, and also looking at the question styles. People often describe our questioning approach as more straightforward, more accessible, using language that is more straightforward and clearer. than some other boards might use. And so it's really a preference for question style and for content at a particular subject level, but also in terms of the support that we provide to teachers, the tools that we make available, and of course the modular approach to qualifications, which you won't find with other boards, and also the teaching hubs at International GCSE, which is the most comprehensive content for delivery of international GCSE qualifications. So also, if you're interested in delivering qualifications on screen, Pearson would be a really fantastic choice of partner. If you're a virtual school, then Pearson is really well positioned to support you. So it really is dependent on your strategic focus for your institution, or the type of students that you're supporting, that may heavily influence which board would be the best fit for you. But as I said, you're not limited to working with one board. You can look at that from a subject level perspective or a suite of qualifications, and make the decision based on what's best for your school and what's best for your students.
Thank you. And there is also a question about fees, and specifically the cost of Edexcel versus Cambridge.
So from an approvals perspective, we don't charge an annual centre approval fee. And so that can be quite a significant difference. From an examination fee perspective, they would be relatively similar. So it might vary a little bit from suite to suite, but generally similar from an exam fee perspective. But I would say if you're looking at delivering international GCSE and international A-level, then not having that annual fee may be quite a benefit.
A question which is of more local character, if you like. Why is Pearson Edexcel not popular among Mozambique international schools as compared to the Cambridge curriculum?
I think that speaks to the point that I made about our presence in Southern Africa in general. Our focus previously has been much more on East and West Africa, primarily East Africa, where we've got our largest presence. So Egypt and Kenya are our largest markets in Africa. And the reason for that is really because we've been operating historically along the UK academic year. So our examinations were in January and May, June. We didn't have October, November examinations. And so it made it quite tricky for schools in the Southern Hemisphere and Southern Africa to work with us comfortably. Now that is no longer the case. We are really excited to have an October International A-level and also I-primary and I-lower secondary exam series. So it's in October, and then International GCSE exam series in November. And this is why we are really having these sessions to raise awareness of the fact that Pearson is a viable option, that we can accommodate your examination timing, that we have a lot of really interesting and different services and support available than what you maybe have experienced with other boards. And we're really just raising awareness of that because we are sort of starting from the base in Southern Africa as a result of that shift in examination timing. So Mozambique will be the same situation, where schools are just coming to be aware of the fact that Pearson Edexcel is available as an option for British international education. And so as time goes on and we engage with more schools, so we hope that we will see more partner schools coming on board. We do need to engage the Ministry of Education in Mozambique to secure recognition and approval there. So that's an integral part of growing into the country.
Thank you. There is some more questions in chat. To go back to the PD Academy is a question from Portia, who's asking, so can I still access the courses on our PD Academy platform even if I'm not working for a Pearson school?
Ilaria, I'm not sure if you know the answer to that question. I'm not sure if you might require a username and login issued by a school or a centre number. If so, you would need to, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead, and then I can add onto your comments, your answer.
Yeah, I think for most of the courses, you probably would need a center number or a login that's issued by a center. So I would, again, just suggest that you reach out to an organization like Tutors and Exams and ask whether they may be able to support you with accessing that. And or go onto the PD Academy and see if some of the courses are open to individuals. You can always reach out to us if there's something specific that you're trying to access.
Exactly. I can leave you my email address, so you can reach out directly to me and I can investigate that for you.
Thank you, Larry.
I'll just stop typing it in chat. Some more questions have come into the Q&A chat from Jill. How does Pearson curriculum support learners with special needs, especially in English?
So again, it's a tricky one to answer without knowing the needs themselves, but I think something that's worth mentioning is our access arrangements for our examinations. So we have a broad range of access arrangements available to students that are taking our examination, from scribes to obviously extra time to enlarged text to braille papers. We really have a broad range of various access arrangements that are available to students based on assessments that would need to be submitted to us from educational psychologists or the relevant professionals. And we have an incredible team that then looks at what is the most appropriate access arrangement to make available to those individual students to support them to successfully complete our examinations. So that's something that's really important to know, and you can explore that in on our website as well, or reach out to us if you want to know a little bit more about what is possible in that space.
Another question from Rayenda. I would like to know if there are any specific learning materials and courses for slow learners.
Not necessarily, but Pearson doesn't dictate the timing of your delivery. So things like your substitute sitting rule would be a constraint for examinations. But from a Pearson perspective, you could take the 2-year international GCSE and deliver it over 3 years if that's what is most appropriate for your students, and then write the examinations when they're ready to do those. So I think it's more about how you use the material and the resources available and adapt those to your specific learners. We don't necessarily produce content that's specifically designed for special educational needs or for any particular learner needs.
One last question, and then I think we covered most of the topics. Is there any time limit to complete all the modules for A-level?
No, so Cambridge does have a 13-month rule between AS and A2. Pearson does not have that. So, and if you're doing the full A-level, then the 2-sitting rule falls away with USAF. But obviously, if you're outside of South Africa, then, it would be based on the local progression criteria. From a Pearson perspective, there's no restriction as long as it's within the lifespan of that specification. So if we update the subject specification, we publish a new subject specification, we will publish the last assessment and last certification dates for that subject. So you would need to then make sure that you're completing your qualification within that assessment period. But spreading out those units is really up to you, and would not be reflected on the certification.
One last question in the Q&A chat. Are the digitally written papers like International GCSE and AL English and History only available to virtual schools or also to regular brick and mortar schools?
No, they are absolutely available to brick and mortar schools, because generally those exams would be sat in a brick and mortar school, in a traditional exam environment, but on computers rather than with paper. So absolutely, any schools that are interested in shifting to on-screen assessment, you could reach out to us and talk to us about the process and the support that we offer to schools that are running our on-screen assessments. We have an incredible team that handholds you through the process. And as I say, there's been fantastic feedback from students that have used those examinations. So definitely available to brick and mortar schools. Obviously, you just need to make sure you've got enough computers and devices to support your student numbers. But yes, absolutely available.
I think we have exhausted all the questions. So I just wanted to say before Christine's closes the session, thank you for attending today's webinar. We really would appreciate it if you could let us know whether you enjoyed today's webinar and how you rate it. So I'm just going to include in chat a little poll. If you could answer it, that would be really great. And also, as Christine has mentioned before, the webinar is going to be recorded and we will share it with you in a couple of days' time, probably early next week, in the email that we will send out with a link to the webinar and possibly the deck as well. There will also be a link to a satisfaction webinar. So if you could fill in the webinar, fill in the survey to let us know whether you've enjoyed today's webinar, that'd be really great. So thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you so much, Ilaria. Thank you for your help fielding all the questions. And thank you to everybody who's joined us this evening. I really hope you found it helpful. Thank you also to those who are giving us some feedback in the chat. We will be running future webinars. So if you have ideas of what else you would like us to cover or give a little bit more detail on, please do share some ideas in the chat. This is really just to help raise general awareness of Pearson, Edexcel, and our qualifications, and the options available to you within British International Education. So thank you for your time, and I wish you a wonderful evening. Bye-bye, everyone.